welcome to another one of my videos. In today's video we are covering setting up the Spirit flybarless unit with stabilization function or rescue function, depending on what your needs are. Now the Spirit unit provides you two options on how to enable the functionality. The first one is using a dedicated channel with a switch or whatever function you want to use on your radio to activate it, and then enabling rescue or stabilization. The second way is to use negative gyro input. I will not be covering the negative gyro input function here. That goes into banks and switching banks and all kinds of stuff, and I don't want to complicate the video. If you want me to do something like that, let me know in the comments and I will make one specific on that. To do this, and note, I'm not going to go through the setup wizard to do this. I really want to focus just on the stabby functionality and not in how we do wizards and whole setup of the radio. So I'll jump to the parts that is very specific to how we enable this, which means that obviously you already have your helicopter set up, at least through the initial setup. Also note that I am using firmware 3.2.1, which is the latest here at the end of 2020. So in the future maybe this would change a little bit, but it's always good when you do this to make sure that you are updated. If you want to see how to do that, I have other videos showing that. Alright, to set up a switch on your radio to control functionality of stabilization, we need to go to the channels tab. Note I'm using OpenTX for this specific helicopter and the setup here. So I use SBus, even though it says Futaba, it's OpenTX. We go to channels, and you will see that on the right side here I have gone and found stabby function in that drop down list, and then I assigned it to channel 8. Now this could be any channel on your radio that you have set up, and I will put up a little screenshot here and showing where that is on my radio, on my OpenTX transmitter. You go to the inputs or outputs and you can set up an output to do this, but basically the idea is that you set up channel 8 to have a switch input that then makes it jump from negative 100 to positive 100 or 0 to 100 depending on your radio. With OpenTX it is set up to use negative 100 to positive 100. And once you've done this, this is super important, guys. Make sure you test it right here. Well, without the helicopter on, of course. Your helicopter needs to be off, or the motor needs to be disconnected. So please don't do that with the motor connected.
Stabilization on.
Flip the switch and make sure that this changes to on, or is in the on position when you expect it to be on. You don't want to start this off and be in the on position when you enable your radio and expecting something else. It could go really bad on you. So make sure that this sees that channel properly configured and set up for you. And when I flip the switch,
Stabilization on. Stabilization on.
okay, so now that we have assigned a switch to our stabilization function, it does nothing yet. We now have to go and tell it what we want it to do. Alright, actually it would have in this case, since I have stabilization normal selected, but by default it would have been disabled. As you can see, when I am in disabled mode, here explains the dedicated channel versus negative gyro input. So read that if you're interested. I'm not going to go there. We will go to and describe what all these are. Rescue normal. Rescue normal is the ability to upright or put your helicopter back into an upright position. So when I hit my rescue button or switch, the helicopter will flip itself into a position so that the skids are pointing down, the blades are pointing up. So fully upright position. Doesn't matter what position it was in, but as soon as you hit that switch, it will flip it into an upright position. Rescue collective pitch. This is the pitch that you want to use for performing the corrective action. So when I hit that switch, put the pitch into this position, and typically this would be probably higher. I think by default it's 60. And so it will do a rather violent twist and put the helicopter upright. Make sure you play with this, feel comfortable, and test it. Always test your settings. Don't wait until you need it to activate it and then it doesn't do what you want to. Make sure you test it. Alright, acro delay. This is a setting that allows you or tells the system, before you do the flip, wait this long, 0.5 seconds in this case. You can make it shorter, whatever you want it to be, while applying enough pitch to move me away. And the idea here is to move the helicopter away from the ground before performing the corrective action. In other words, flipping it upright. Now, half a second doesn't sound like much, but trust me, in this case, it is more than enough. And you probably need less than that. But of course, if you were at 0, nothing is going to save you. So make sure you hit that button as far as you can and get yourself in an upright position. That's why it's there. Rescue duration. This is something that says override the switch after X amount of time, in this case 4 seconds. So if I am so stressed out and I forgot to let go of the switch, after 4 seconds it will disable the rescue function anyway. And once it does it, it will go into a hover. And so what this tells it is how much pitch do I need the helicopter to be in to make it hover. So whatever that is for your helicopter, you need to put that in here. Stick priority. I have default 6 here. I think that is what default was. And basically what this does, it allows you to still use your sticks even though you're holding the rescue switch in. You might want to correct the way the helicopter points during this process. And this allows you to say, well, give me the ability to do that. Give me override on the helicopter. And this is for collective end. And so the higher this number is, the more your sticks will impact what the helicopter does. The lower the value, the less. And so if you're somebody who bang your sticks and still learning, maybe you want this a lower value so you don't accidentally interrupt whatever the flybar is trying to do to recover your helicopter. So there you go. That's that setting. Rescue acro. It is pretty much the same thing than rescue normal, except for one thing, and that is that if you are inverted, it will not flip you back upright. You will stay inverted. It just levels out the helicopter. So your blades will still be pointing down, the skids pointing up, but just level out the system. It will, however, apply enough pitch to make you shoot up into the air. It'll apply relative pitch so to move the helicopter away from the ground. Again, you have the option to enable rescue duration. Exactly the same thing than with normal, and the same thing with stick priority. That is no different there. Next one we will cover here is stabilization normal. And stabilization normal is interesting. So it's not rescue. A lot of people, when they learn, might want to use this ability. And what it does, and you can say put it on a 2-position switch and enable it. So it stays on all the time. And the idea here is that it actually will take the helicopter and keep it in a horizontal position. And when you move the sticks, it will go to that direction, let go of the stick, the helicopter will return into a normal position, horizontal position. It won't stay like in a rate mode and move off. So it'll tend to keep itself upright all the time. You have to physically override it with the sticks the whole time. The only setting here is direction control rate. Basically what you do here with direction control rate is the higher the value, the more responsive your helicopter will be. So play around with that. Stabilization acro is exactly the same thing, except that you can now do this inverted as well. So note that it is impossible to flip the helicopter while in stabilization mode. What you will have to do is turn this off with a switch, flip the helicopter, and then turn it back on. And once you do, it'll behave the same way than stabilization normal does, except in inverted position. Very stable. It keeps the helicopter level and you basically move it around. This is really good for learning orientation. on your helicopter. So this is mode stabilization, both normal and acro. Very, very good for learning how to fly. Then we have stabilization scale, and basically it's the same stabilization, except that heading hold is turned off. You're now in rate mode. That's the big difference between stabilization scale and the stabilization normal. It'll look more natural when you do that, but they work exactly the same. And then coaxial, if you ever flown one of those little coaxial helicopters, this basically makes it feel like that when you fly it. So it's almost like normal, but with those rates, and it's easier to fly. So if you really have never flown a helicopter, coaxial mode is probably not a bad idea to start up with, just to get your orientations under control and get the feel of a helicopter without destroying anything. Well, unless you fly into walls, of course, but that I can help you with. And then you have, again, the stick priority. The more higher the number, the more reactive the helicopter will be. So those are your options that you have. Progression really from bottom to top. As you get more confident with your flying style, you can move this up to the top, up to the point where rescue acro is really the one that you want to have, so that when you do something stupid and you hit that, it will just level out the helicopter and not crash into the ground. I hope this has been useful. Give me comments, like, and subscribe, and talk at you later.